How's it going so far? OTC 26? I love seeing all your faces here in our live audience here in Houston. My name is Amy Sweezy. I am your host for the next couple of days here at the Energy Evolution Exchange. So welcome to the Offshore Technology Conference. I'm happy to see all of you live and in person. And of course, all of our guests who are watching this from around the world, we are streaming this presentation live as well. My next guest, our next presentation, very special. I know you are all here to hear this. Mrs. Oritsemeyiwa Eyesan is from NUPRC, the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, and she is here to share the Nigerian perspective of the energy evolution. So please welcome now to the stage, Mrs. Oritsemeyiwa Eyesan.
Good morning, everyone. Please confirm you can hear me. Great. So good morning and welcome to Houston. Welcome to OTC and welcome to PETAN. PETAN because they are our face. They are the ones organizing the Nigerian representation. Today I'm here to speak to you about evolution of oil and gas in Nigeria. And I would like you to technology is not responsive. Yeah. Can I do this? Okay. Please just give us a minute.
Do it manually? There we go.
Okay.
Now this will work.
Great. So permit me to just take you down memory lane. We're talking about evolution of oil and gas in Nigeria. I'm sure everyone sitting here knows when we started the journey. So what happened before the journey started in 1956? Nigeria was heavily dependent on biomass, solid minerals, predominantly coal. Coal was used to power our railway lines. Our children didn't even understand what that meant, unfortunately. We also had biomass, heavily dependent on biomass. Coal was also used to power electricity, for electricity generation. And we depended on that up until 1956, when the major discovery was made in the popular Oloibiri. Oloibiri was a turning point for Nigeria. It was a point where Nigeria was represented on the Committee of Nations as it relates to oil and gas. And as God will have it, not only did we discover oil and gas, we discovered oil and gas in great quantities. So, we continued exploring and exploiting our natural, God-given resources. At the initial stage of our development, our focus was on export, predominantly on export. Good enough, the founding fathers of the industry recognized the need to have backward integration. Hence, the setting up of NNPC at that time, then the National Oil Company. The NOC was structured to be fully integrated from upstream to midstream and then down to downstream. The focus was the initial entrants will cede their interest to the National Oil Company. And so NNPC took a majority shareholding in those early entrants. We developed, we ensured that we exported and generated revenue for the country. The revenues were what we used in building our refineries. From that era, the oil predominant era, we then moved on to a gas play. However, prior to 1990, we saw that biomass had declined from about 74% to 49% of our energy mix. And when you layer that on the global energy mix, you saw oil being displaced from about 38% to 30%. So while the Nigerian environment speaks differently to the global picture, one thing is consistent. Oil and gas, up to 2019, was paramount to global existence. Then came our clamor for climate change, where we now started seeing changes in the environment, a deterioration of the environment. And as students of the energy industry, we had to conform. We had to conform to the push for cleaner sources of energy. And that is what necessitated Nigeria's move to 2000 being declared as a decade of gas. Permit me to share with you some stats. If you look at this chart, look at the reserves profile for both oil and gas. We see a steady rise. And as at 1st January 2021, our oil reserves had declined slightly to 27.01 billion barrels. On the other hand, gas in itself had increased from 210 to 215 TCF. There lies in our opportunity. So while oil has been declining, we've seen an upswing in gas. And I repeat, there lies in our opportunity. Nigeria is a predominantly gas province. And as some students of petroleum engineering and history will tell you, they will tell you that oil is now incidental to gas. That is open for debate, of course. So, how has the journey really fared? I've taken us through a bit of a background. So we started with solid minerals. We started with coal, with biomass, up to 1950. And we then went into the hydrocarbon dawn from 1956 to 1990s. And then to the gas frontier, which necessitated the declaration of the decade of gas. Why gas? Like I just said, we are a predominantly gas province. And we were also confronted with a climate change challenge. So the move to cleaner sources of energy was imperative. Gas undoubtedly is a more versatile hydrocarbon. Gas, like you know, is also a lot more cleaner than oil. And so Nigeria began the decade of gas. We started on the gas commercialization drive. Hither to that, we worked on dump gas expansion plans. The Nigerian government made it a primary focus to invest in gas. In our national budget, about a third of the budget was segregated for gas development. However, not much happened correspondently with gas infrastructure. The deficit between gas supply and gas infrastructure impeded gas supply to the domestic market. That notwithstanding, gas continued to increase. We invested a lot in export gas, and we then moved from trains 1 to 3 of our flagship LNG project to train 6. And today, we are speaking not just about train 7, but also train 8. But what is more interesting is that the domestic gas market is now positioned to blossom. And as if fate knew we will be speaking today about our gas journey. Just last week, the NNPC Limited finally, and I stress that, finally crossed the OB3 river crossing. That is a major infrastructure required for domestic gas markets. We've been on this project for almost 2 decades, and we finally achieved that. And what does that mean for the future? I'll come to that in a minute. We've also made deliberate efforts to reduce flare gas. We sanctioned the gas commercialization program and ensured that we concessionaire our flare gas to companies who are competent and able to convert those molecules to value. We are on that journey, and we are confident that this will work. The next phase is the future. So now we've unlocked the gas opportunities. What does the future hold? The future is one that we will deepen our gas play. By virtue of the PIA, we've now been fortunate enough to have clarity of our regulatory environment to enable us grow indigenous capacity, to enable us grow even the resources that we are naturally endowed with. Some of the provisions in the PIA lay credence to the fact that we have no alternative than to continue to grow domestically, the indigenous markets, utilizing all the resources and competencies that we can muster. We are here seated in OTC today because we believe we can partner with the right competencies, we can partner with the right companies to grow the indigenous capacity. The future, like I said, holds opportunities to deepen our gas play. it also holds opportunity for us to decarbonize. Like I said from the beginning, gas is definitely, undoubtedly, a cleaner source of energy than oil. And since we have huge resources of gas, huge reserves of gas, we can push that objective to achieving full decarbonization by 2060. We also see renewables playing a significant role in our future. So it's not only about oil, it's not only about gas, but we see renewables playing significant role in the future. Like I have said, just to recap, we have gone through 4 distinct phases, or we are going through 4 distinct phases, 3 of them in the past and 1 for the future. A phase where we were predominantly dependent on solid minerals and biomass. We transited to a phase where hydrocarbon played a major role. And now we have the gas play. Nigeria is poised for industrialization. I cannot but overemphasize the major milestone that we achieved last week is a signal to massive opportunities in Nigeria. The OB3 in itself has the capacity to move 2 BCF of gas. Now, just to paint a bit of context to that, today the domestic market utilizes slightly above 2 BCF. So you have one single infrastructure that has the capacity to move 2 BCF of gas. That is a game changer. And I believe for those who have foresight, they will jump into the play before it is too late. I see smiles on some faces. I hope you are already in the play. And for the future, it's not just about Nigeria. We are endowed with these resources. I believe that we can also become a very, very active regional force for this gas, especially for the gas that we have. I am not speaking much about the oil, not because oil is not significant. The truth is that gas is the energy for the future. And I believe we are positioned to make gas work for us. So what are the opportunities for future gas development? Today, we struggle to generate 4 gigawatts of electricity. Statistics have it that what we really need is over 20 gigawatts. What has impeded is our access to reliable gas transmission. Today, that has been unlocked. I talked about biomass. Anyone familiar with Nigeria will know that if you go to the rural areas, a lot of homes are predominantly on biomass for electrification, for cooking, and what have you. Today, the story is changing, and the story is going to change very fast. For transportation, I'm sure you all are aware that the present administration, under the leadership of our president, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, took the bold step to, I will use the word, terminate fuel subsidies. I call it a bold step because that has enabled the use of alternative sources of energy for mobility. Today, we see a growing increase in the utilization of CNG for mobility. And with the unlocking of the domestic market, domestic gas transportation, I believe there will be a rapid increase. Industrialization is hinged to a large extent on gas. Today we are seeing a number of industrial hubs come to life. And most of it is driven by gas. Gas for power, gas as a feedstock, petrochemicals for plastics, inclusive. Gas, like I said from the beginning, is quite versatile. And I believe that these industrial hubs, with the opening of OB3, with the crossing of OB3, will expand, especially in the mid parts of Nigeria and in the north. So, ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria is not only open for business. The opportunities are enormous. To crown it up, inasmuch as I haven't spoken much about oil, as the Commission Chief Executive, we are constantly in the market by virtue of the PIA to open our acreages to would-be investors. As we speak today, we are progressing on the 2025 bid rounds, where we have 50 assets up for grabs. The interesting phenomenon is that we only have 50 assets. We had almost 300 applicants for those 50 blocks. That tells you that the opportunities are there. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's any destination that you want to focus on for your investment dollars, I don't need to convince you. The facts are there. Nigeria is the place to be. So my final words, we are endowed with the right resources. We are equally responsible, and we are committed to climate change goals. We are committed to the national commitment to decarbonize by 2060, and we will use what we have to achieve what we want. Ladies and gentlemen, I once again want to submit. If you do not take anything away from this conference, be mindful that Nigeria is a space to watch. And while you are pondering over what to do, I can assure you that the smart ones will have gone ahead of you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to Nigeria, and as the foremost regulatory body in the upstream, I welcome you to Nigeria, and I look forward to seeing you at the other side of the Atlantic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Grab some water if you like.
Yeah.
We're going to do just a couple of little follow-up questions here, especially for some of the folks who joined us a little later, maybe missed the beginning of your presentation. First of all, how long have you been with NUPRC?
Since, so I think let me just give a bit of a background to how I got there first, before I tell you how long I've been there.
Okay, perfect.
So for the industry, I've been in the industry for over 30 years. I worked with the National Oil Company. So when I was passionate about the OB3, I think I was one of those people who held it down. So just a joke. So I was there in NMPC up till 2024. I took a year, they say a gap year. I took a year off work and came back in December 2025 as the Commission Chief Executive. So practically at the end of December, so practically 4 months.
And what are you most excited about in your job?
So the industry is growing. As a young entrant into the industry, I was hopeful that we will get to the Nigerian oil industry with active local participation. I repeat, active local participation. At the time I joined, there were predominantly about 6 companies, and they were all IOCs. So at that time, I was looking up to Nigerians acquiring the right skills, the right competencies, and being able to run the industry. Today, I sit as a chief of the upstream, and I see almost 100 Nigerian companies doing business in the industry. I think that is phenomenal, and I think that is very, very exciting.
Fantastic. Oh, yes. And I love that you talked about some of the key milestones, the evolution of your country's journey. Talk a little bit about the national commitment, you mentioned this, to net zero emissions by 2060. Yeah. Is it doable? Is it going to happen? And how excited are you about making that happen?
Yeah, so we have 2 commitments. First, 0 flares by 2030, and net zero by 2060. Today, we are flaring less than 10%. And like I said, we already have a commercialization program to harness the flares. So we are not just satisfied with the penalties that companies pay for flaring. We are determined to zero out flares. So the commercialization project is basically concessioning the flare sites to companies who have proven that they have the right technical capabilities to convert those flares to value. Today, we are working on a target of converting those flares to about 3 gigawatts of electricity. And this project is currently ongoing. Now, for the total decarbonization by 2060, I also believe it's attainable. I believe it's possible. While we are focused on oil, I kept re-emphasizing that we are more of a gas province. And the focus is to encourage cleaner technologies. So it is not about vilifying hydrocarbons. how do we adapt, integrate cleaner technologies to our operations. And today, some of our facilities, even offshore facilities, run on solar. So we have a mix, even though we are hydrocarbon industry, we have a mix of even renewables as part of our energy mix. And like I said, we are also toying with CCUS projects, and this, though it's on the medium long term, are things that we are working on to ensure that we fully achieve our goals.
All right, so decreasing the gas flares with a 2030 goal,
Yep.
and then the complete elimination or the net zero emissions by 2060. So as we move into the future and we talk about Nigeria, how do we ensure that Nigeria stays on track in order to actualize all of these goals in the integrated energy future?
By me being there.
I love that.
So the beauty about the Nigerian industry today, so we have the PIA. The PIA is the Petroleum Industry Act. It was enacted in 2021. And what it did for Nigeria was to provide clarity to the rules of engagement, was to make the industry more competitive in terms of the fiscals, in terms of even the regulatory environment. And the beauty is that today, in addition to having the PIA, we also have a very responsive government. So when we enacted the PIA, we thought we had achieved competitiveness. However, within a few years of implementing the PIA, when we did a global benchmark, a global study, we found that the PIA terms were not as competitive as they were 2 years prior. So the current administration, the current government, has been very responsive to constantly evaluate where we are and ensure that they provide incentives to attract and retain investment in Nigeria. So we are definitely working collaboratively, the government, on the policy side, and also the industry. My role is to ensure that industry players operate by the rules. And we have, since I assumed office in December, we have made that very clear. We have a listening ear. We've told the industry we will be an enabler for business, but at the same time, we will also ensure that the rules are adhered to. So be rest assured, working in sync, working collaboratively, we will definitely achieve our goals.
I asked you at the beginning about what you were excited about in your job. As we close out, what are you excited about as we move into the future?
So I see the future as a full ecosystem. Nigeria is a major player in the industry. But I see Nigeria being a beacon for Africa. Some people refer to us as the big brother Africa, and I think rightly so. I believe because of the endowments that we have, we can help to increase energy access for Africa. When we started this journey of climate change, it all appeared that it was skewed against Africa because Africa was now deprived of investment because of the perception that we were heavily hydrocarbon resource countries. But I think the story is changing. So the message for me, or the goal for me, is to utilize our position as the major oil and gas producer to galvanize and build Africa, to open up energy access, to reduce energy poverty, and ensure industrialization for the whole of Africa.
All right, Mrs. Oritsemeyiwa Eyesan from the NUPRC, thank you for being at OTC 26.
Thank you very much, dear.